Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. Cecilia here, and today I'm going to show you a pretty simple and effective way to paint really detailed and realistic looking grass. I am currently finishing this painting here, and as you can see there's a big green area that I'm going to fill with lots of grass, and I thought it would be nice to share that process with you. So this video is more about the actual technique, not necessarily about the colors, because it really depends on the painting that you want to create. For example, here I add lots of yellow to the green and a bit of black because it's a sunset scenery. But this is a totally different green tone than the one that you can find at noon when the sun is really high. Then the green is much more vibrant and intense, right? But basically we need 3 different color tones: a dark green for the shadows, a mid-tone green, and a light green for the bright areas. First of all, it is important to know where the light is coming from in order to set the values properly. In this case, the light is coming from the right side here at the background, so that means that that part is brighter than this one here in the foreground. So we keep that in mind while painting. And yeah, the brushes that we need are a fan brush and a tiny brush for the single blades of grass. And we start with the fan brush. As you can see, I already painted this area, so you want to have a basic layer as well. I suggest to use a mid-tone green. We start putting on the shades. For that we use our dark green color, and we kind of make waves of grass. In the foreground they are really big and wide, and the further away we go, the smaller and thinner they are. And you see with this fan brush we get multiple little brush strokes which already start to look like grass. Now we use the mid-tone green and paint right above the darker areas, and you want to keep the fan brush frayed at some points. You see, we use more mid-tone green in the background because there will be less contrast, and we leave some gaps in between for the light areas. After that, we use the light green color and we gently fill out the rest again. We want to have the fan brush frayed to create little strokes all at once. And you can also use sometimes only the corner to bring some irregularity to the structure. Let's have a look down here. This is the very foreground, so that means that these blades of grass are going to be much bigger than the rest. So we painted pretty dark to really create a huge contrast that make the single blades of grass kind of pop. I even add a little bit more black to the dark green to emphasize the contrast. Then we use the mid-tone green again and paint right above the shadow areas. And now we use the light green and paint only the tips. It's also good to move the brush in different ways, not only straight upwards, but also to the sides. The Next step is about really elaborating single blades of grass. For that we use the tiny brush and the light green, and we kind of follow the brush strokes that we just painted, but we want to tweak them because they look too structured, right? So the key here really is randomness. We just put the lighter color on top in various directions and in this way bring irregularity into the grass. Also, we want the brush to be flat in order to create thin brush strokes. So I guess the less you think about it and just paint, the better it will be. You can paint longer and shorter ones, straight and a little bit curved. And of course, the further away we go, the thinner and smaller the blades of grass are. Here in the foreground we paint longer and thicker blades of grass, like that, in order to create great contrast within the painting. Basically I follow the lines and then I go into different directions when I'm moving towards the tips, and in this way it looks like different bundles of grass, but the single blades of grass are still random. Let's make some really big blades of grass in the very foreground. For that we paint really thick angled and curved lines like this. Can you see that this really adds an extra dimension to it? Looks amazing, right? Here the blades of grass get tinier and thinner. It's quite repetitive, but it's really worth it in the end. And these darker spots in between give also great variation. This next step might seem a bit weird, but basically what we do is we pick our dark green color and darken a little bit some areas in the foreground in order to enhance the dark light contrast. But only a few strokes here and there, not too much. We don't want to ruin our work that we just did. But actually when you look at grass, some blades and spots are darker than the other ones. Now we're setting the highlights. For that we use white mixed with a bit yellow, and we only paint the tips, not the whole blades of grass. This makes them stand out even more. And we do not highlight every single blade of grass, just a few here and there to give an extra depth to it. Let's have a look at these thick blades of grass in the very foreground. I like to paint them even more detailed, so we grab our dark green and paint one thin line in the middle, which is the vein, and highlight the edges even more. So I just draw a dark line in the middle and paint the tips as well as the edges in the upper half brighter. And I'm kinda amazed how effective that is. These simple brush strokes really bring another dimension to the foreground. It's not that hard to add extra details and make the painting more alive. Of course, it requires practice, but I think the approach is quite simple. And we will add some flowers, I think, later, and also I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the edge of this cliff. Now let's continue with the middle part. Again, we paint single blades of grass, so we still have sort of a structure, but these brush strokes are barely visible because they're so thin and tiny. Also here in the brighter areas, we're going to use a lighter green, otherwise we won't see them. The further away we go, the less sharp we want to have it. Basically, we transition into making only little spots, so the grass in the background is a bit different and not that intricate. We create these areas, brighter spots here and there, but we want to keep this randomness. Of course, you can also pick a bigger brush, that works as well. We mainly use the bright green and the mid-tone green. We don't want to get too dark in the background because we have way less contrast compared to the foreground. Everything kind of unifies into one color tone. Now we're going to merge the blurred background with the sharp foreground. So in the middle we create something in between. Some blurred spots and also some individual blades of grass. So I paint single brush strokes, but they're pretty small, kind of blended and more apart from each other. And we adjust it with the mid-tone green and blend it a little bit more. Then we're going to paint the highlights again. Here and there a few blades of grass and in the very background some blurred dots. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here and I hope this video was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments below if you still have some questions about this topic and also what you'd like to see next. I wish you a wonderful day and I see you in my next video.